Hello, everybody. I am very excited for today's conversation on how industry partners are using technology to make their life easier. But before we dive in, I first kind of want to reflect on technology and our lives in general. I was talking to Ian with Country Malt Group, and before we went live, we did our CBP first virtual conference. What was it, like 2020, of course, Ian?
Yep, yep.
What was that experience like for you?
I think we got interrupted and the streaming went down about 20 seconds in, and then probably every 5 to 10 minutes thereafter.
Yeah,
The
this was
info we shared was really welcome, but not so
this was like April 2020 when we were first learning how to use our cameras, first learning how to stream. We were just making the most of this unknown world. And it's crazy to think we've done almost 6 of those now. But I think the value of these virtual sessions and virtual education is extremely important. And it's been great to see how companies on all sides of our industry, have latched on the technology to make everything better. And we're going to dive into that momentarily. But Dan, because you are to the right of me, could you let everybody know who you are and what you do in craft beer?
Yeah, so Dan Hornbrook, representing BrewLogix out of Indianapolis, Indiana, and we are a technology company that has an ecosystem of products that serve kind of different customers, and those range from consumers looking for their next brewery experience to bars and craft beer bars and tap rooms, and then as well as our brewers, trying to get them engaged on the marketing front to get them exposed to those consumers. So. That's kind of who we are in a short tidbit, but we can go deeper as we go on.
Great having you, Dan. Justin, you're up.
Yeah, Andrew, thanks for hosting today. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Justin. I'm one of the co-founders of Kickfin, headquartered in Austin, Texas. Quite simply put, we exist to digitize the cash tip-out process. It's hard to believe that even in today's world, 90+% of hospitality or bars still tip out in cash, which is probably the most analog process of their day. So we take all the complexity out of processing those tips. And what makes us unique is that we move money directly to the employee's bank of choice in under 2 seconds. So we've had the good fortune of being labeled the largest tipping gratuity management solution in market, and just feel lucky to be here with everybody today. And thanks for the opportunity.
Fantastic. And I know brewery employees love getting tips quickly. So that's a really cool value you all at Kickfin are providing. Ian, like I said earlier, it's been too long, so great to have you today.
It's great to be back. Hello, everybody. I'm with Country Malt Group. We are an ingredient supplier that provides malt, hops, chemicals, and all ancillary items to breweries and distilleries around the U.S. and Canada. I've been with them for 10 years on outside sales, territory manager, and then overseeing sales team in the East. But in the last year, I've been moved into what's called a digital sales manager role. And we recognize that there's a lot of opportunities to use technology to both make our business a lot more easy and seamless to work with, but also to help our customers make their own lives a lot easier. So that's where I come in, and it's nice and fun to start this up and running.
And not to pick on you, Ian, but Country Malt Group is the only company name on the panel today that doesn't really have that techie-like name. So
that's right. I mean, we've been doing malt, which is, I think, 125 years old right now. So technology has always been there, but not quite the way we think of it.
Very excited to learn more. Ian with BarTrack, welcome.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, excited to be here. I'm Ian Purcell. I'm the Senior Director of Client Success over here at BarTrack. We're a tech company, hardware, software side. We created the first beverage sensor that is non-intrusive. And it's the first beverage sensor of its kind that can actually segment waste for you. So for breweries and restaurants where they're doing traditional inventories and getting a lump sum variance, we take that variance, we segment it into different categories so you can identify where your loss is occurring. We also automate the inventory process, making it simple and easy daily, weekly, and monthly.
Well, great to have you today. And last but not least, Pulkit, great to see you again.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, great to be here. So quick introduction. My name is Pulkit Agrawal. I also go by PK. I'm the founder and CEO of The Fifth Ingredient. And we've developed the brewery management software system called Beer 30. And Beer 30 is really designed to help breweries remove their paper logs, whiteboards, and spreadsheets and have an all-in-one system that helps them track their data from grain to glass. So with Beer 30, breweries are able to really focus in on making purchase orders, tracking the entire raw material inventory, going from the brewing side, fermentation, process, sensory, yeast, things like that, all the way to sales and distribution, integrating with QuickBooks Online Zero, and then tying in with the entire future material resource planning. So basically ties in with the entire supply chain with a focus on brewing data and quality.
And PK will be speaking at the upcoming CBP Connects in Norfolk, Virginia, this September 12th to 14th. So I hope to see many of you there. But before we dive into what you're doing now, I want to look back at some of your past. For anyone on the panel today who was at a brewery prior to your current role, what motivated you to change to the supplier side of the industry? PK, you're up. At this point, just unmute. Let's talk. Let's make a conversation of it.
Oh, nice. Cool. Yeah, so my background is that I studied mechanical engineering and then was recruited to work at Ballast Point Brewing as a process engineer. And so at Ballast Point in San Diego, I was really focusing on the packaging equipment, bottling, canning, kegging lines. And as a process engineer, really focused in on what to do to really optimize with the data that was in front of us. And so help them out with their nitrogen beer side of things, a nitrogen project, and help them with the expansion down to Virginia. And really the biggest transition was I was using all this data as an engineer to help keep making process improvements. And then afterwards, after I left, I started the Fifth Ingredient as the supplier side, Andrew, to really focus in on consulting for breweries and just really focused in on going to a couple breweries and quickly realized that if a brewery that I went to had a brewery software system that was prevalent in the industry, they would still have a binder full of paper logs, whiteboards, and spreadsheets, and quickly realized that there wasn't an industry standard when it came to brewery data tracking, and most of these other softwares were just more inventory based. And so that's kind of where the idea from Beer 30 came along. And I was like, well, I'll try and code out a little bit of it to get started, and just began from there on it and became part of the supplier side instead of on the brewing production side.
Anybody else spend time in the production side or the brewery side of the industry?
Yeah, I'll speak a little on that, I guess. I came from more of a distribution background and then jumped over to a brewery working in sales, managing a couple states for a brewery. But, really going into the on-premise and recognizing that, one thing is people are shaking kegs to find out what's inside of them. Pretty wild that that's still the standard of like how much is it, still in that keg. We have, a great product that helps solve that and saw the opportunity to advance some of that and get some real-time data to people's hands that they can actually do stuff with that data. And as well as, from another aspect of where people are, used to go looking for beers and who breweries are, expanding, Brewery DB to being more of an experience site and what people are searching for nowadays versus what they were searching for 5, 10 years ago from just products. They want to go see what these people are building.
And Dan, what is Brewery DB?
Yeah, Brewery DB is our consumer site where people can get on and they can find their next brewery experience. So if you're searching for a date night and you want to make sure they got a live band or some activities going on, you can go there. If you got kids and you want to make sure they got a menu so you can feed those little kiddos, you can look that up and filter it and build routes and do all really cool things just to go, dive deep into the breweries. And so just saw a huge opportunity there where people are looking for more than just products. They're looking for experiences and how to install those into their lifestyle as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Now, Ian, with BarTrack, you also founded a distillery. How does your experience in that role impact what you currently do?
Yeah, so Malarkey Distilled Spirits started as a very small distillery. We've now become number 3 in the state of Virginia. And then we just got ranked as one of the top up-and-coming top 20. We came in 13th in the country.
Congratulations.
And, we were pretty excited about that one. But this the experience of that, it's no different than the brewery world. You're making a product, you're putting time and effort in the back of the house to perfect that spirit or perfect that beer that you're producing. And so making sure that the customer is getting to experience that the way the brewer or the distiller intended was an important thing, right? And with distilling spirits, you're putting it in a bottle and it's going out the door, you're pretty much good to go. On the brewery side, though, you can put all the time and effort into making a great product, and then it can go out to a restaurant, and then you lose that control of how that beer is going to taste. If they're pouring on lines that are unbalanced, if they haven't cleaned their lines, so on and so forth. And so BarTrack came about in the sense that it's not just about segmenting waste, but it's being able to identify where your issues are, why your beer is foaming up, making sure that your lines are being cleaned for the right amount of time at the right temperatures. All the things that are important to the brewer, we kind of take that next step so that when it comes into the restaurant side, we can ensure that the beer is tasting the way the brewer intended. And we do the same thing over on the brewery side as well.
Now, Ian with Country Malt Group.
Yeah, it's what's interesting to me, and I think the beauty of technology as a business is that each and every one of us, whether we've been immersed in the brewing, distilling industries for years, or we just are jumping into it, we've all been part of it long enough to see that there's a challenge or there's a problem that has not yet been solved. And every single technological revolution or technological feat has been somebody saying, I can make that easier, I can do that better. And we're in an absolutely beautiful time right now where thanks to the modern computers, we're able to do some pretty crazy stuff, including starting businesses like everybody else here that's able to actually take advantage of that and solve problems. So I think really, if you have a big enough issue and you are able to solve it with technology and create enough of a value proposition for people to want to make use of that, each of these businesses is going to do quite well.
So, Ian, like I mentioned earlier, when I think Country Malt Group, I don't necessarily think technology. At what point did you decide that something new was needed for your business model?
Right. So I've been prior to getting into the beer industry 10 years ago, I used to work in technology, mostly doing some software as a service sales, things like that. And I was often seeing where you could solve an issue utilizing something modern. With our industry, people have been brewing beer in a lot of the same ways for decades, if not hundreds upon hundreds of years. The technology of the equipment that they're brewing on has changed. And then, of course, the way that they're selling it or distributing it has absolutely been modernized. So my original move into this was a web store. Country Malt Group serves 8,000 customers, ordering sometimes multiple times a week. And if we can improve that ordering process with a web store, that's a fairly easy proposition. It creates value, it makes people happy, and it allows us to work on our ease of doing business. But it's more than that. So we did create a web store. It's not the finest work that we've done as a business. We have originally had 3,000 users of it. That dropped off to about 700, and those 700 are willing to use it despite the fact that you have to clear a browser cache to access it and deal with all sorts of technological hurdles. But people want to. So we're launching next week with a brand new web store that is going to be directly tied into our own ERP. It'll have all sorts of cool features, but it goes beyond that. I mean, people put bulk malt into silos, and then they have to knock on that silo with a rock or a stick to figure out where the level's at. So what if we put automatic sensors in there that tell us it's time to place a new order? What if we get a phone app where customers can get pings saying, this time last year you ordered this type of product. Do you want to pull that trigger again? Just finding ways to make people's lives easier. And my new group, or the group that I'm getting to start up, is designed purely to do that. So I get to poke around and ask what's bugging you and then try and come up with a solution for it.
I love it because all of you today are trying to solve someone's pain points. Justin, with kickfin, I'd love to learn a little bit more about how kickfin came to be. Obviously, everyone likes getting their tips right away, but how did you come to launch this company?
Yeah, well, I think the common theme here is everybody has been maniacally focused around field testing, right?
Maniacally is a great word.
You're in the back office, you're asking questions. And to Ian's point, so much has changed. I mean, the digital transformation of starting a company, 5 years ago, putting up an MVP was somewhat challenging. You really had to have a decent development team to just bring a basic product to market. We now live in a world where you can spin up MVPs, you can bring it to market, and you can field test. And so, I've had the good fortune of working with the same co-founder for the past 15 years, and we would literally sit in the back of our, friends' restaurants and bars. And I remember being in San Francisco on Lombard Street, and we were just sitting with an operator and said, help us understand or walk us through the way in which you tip out. And she reached underneath the desk that we were sitting at and pulled out a bag of $15,000 worth of cash. And we're like, this doesn't make any sense. You literally just went to the bank to pull this cash out to now put it in an analog safe, act like a bank teller. Do you have to round up? Do you round down? What about skimming? What about theft? And it just became this laundry list of like challenges that we saw. And then we both looked at each other and we said, we have something. And in the goal here, I think everybody, you don't want to just simply implement technology for the sake of doing it, but you want that personal connection. And we feel, how you pay your employees has never mattered more than it does today. So, again, we took our first round of funding right when the pandemic hit. We didn't know if we were going to be in business. But then, as breweries open back up and pizza delivery, people are really embracing a more modern way to receive their tips, both the operator and employee.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that story, Justin. And what you said 3 years ago-ish, when you were on Lombard Street brainstorming the idea?
Yeah, it was about 4 years ago. And then, believe it or not, we took our first investment from Loomis, the cash and transit company who carries cash. They said, hey, this isn't going to last forever as people are literally bringing cash on hand just to tip out. So Brian, my co-founder, and I remember leaving a lunch when, the pandemic hit, and we're like, are we going to see each other tomorrow? Like, this may shut us down, but again, thank goodness for the opportunity. People found creative ways to keep things going, and so we stuck it out.
Looking into your crystal ball, Justin, and so many venues these days are switching to no cash and just offering credit options. When do you estimate we will not be giving out any cash?
That's a really good question. I don't think it's anytime soon. I think you're always going to have that 90% of digital transactions increase to 95, 98%. But there are people that literally want to remain unbanked that may pay in cash. The real thing that we want to address is not having to bring cash on hand to be now an administrative nightmare, right? So if you can kind of handle that, I would say more people are on Zelle than ever before. More younger people are paying digitally. I don't know if I've ever talked to anybody that's writing a check for their rent or their car insurance or cell phone bill. So I would say as we start inching over to the 98% plus, and then next 5+ years, I would assume that basically everything would be digital.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Now, Dan, I'm going to throw a question your way. We've already talked a lot today about, customer feedback, just researching your concept, validating it, and putting it out there. With regard to the brands you've launched, Dan, how did customer feedback, even before you launched the products, influence where you are today?
I mean, everything really. We do it to answer the call for the customer. I mean, I hope that's what a lot of people are doing. But there's certain things that you can think of, what you think the customer wants or what they need, but it's really truly empowering to get something, to launch a product, and then you have like one feature that you think is a nice addition, but not a cool, not something that you're going to rave about. And then all of a sudden they're wowed about it. And it's really, really cool to see those moments. And then it's also like a realignment of like, okay, well, maybe we should put some more, time and effort in, building this feature out because this is what the customer wants. And I think that's one thing that, we have to be humble enough as, leaders of our organizations of like, we can't just do it because we think it's the right thing to do. We have to do it because that's what the customer wants. And it also it makes, I don't want to say it easy to kind of build out that roadmap, but it guides you in the right direction, knowing that you have people wanting that thing instead of just kind of a crapshoot.
And what pain points are you currently providing a solution to?
Yeah. So, one is, I'll say with MarketMyBrewery, one is control of data, getting rid of the ratings and reviews and things like that. Like, brewers are wanting to get engaged online, obviously, with, CBP alone on Facebook, you see the membership base there. People want to be involved online and they want to be engaged with their customers, but they also don't want to deal with the ratings that are coming in that are just, giving them more headaches than anything. But they still want to learn about their customer, and they want to know how they can build their businesses just like we do, customer reacting. So giving them an opportunity to get a little insight without some of the negatives is one of the feedbacks that we're getting, and we're trying to build that out with Brewery DB and MarketMyBrewery being the input to that. So, yeah.
It's interesting to me, we've already talked quite a bit about figuring out what people want, but it's thanks to mediums like CBP now where everybody's able to be very vocal about what's causing them headaches or what they do want. I mean, social media, for all of its challenges, has offered a platform where we're able to find out what the masses need or what the most people need and why. And it allows folks like us to try and implement those.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to believe that we've only been around a little over 5 years, but it's fantastic just to follow the pulse of the industry based on people's comments, questions, and sometimes even rants in CBP, because you learn so much just in the comments section.
Yeah.
And speaking of social media, PK, you also have a Facebook group for your users. And I know the conversation, it's taking a different spin than I expected, but I think the importance of talking to your brewery partners is extremely important. So PK, for you and Beer 30, how do you utilize, your community to kind of provide a better value to everyone who's a customer?
Yeah, what's really cool about that, the way that we've approached this is what we call our quote Beer 30 success toolkit of sorts. And so there's 4 aspects of that. The first one being is that we developed a Beer 30 knowledge base where people can actually go in and learn based on documentation on how different aspects of the system work and really understand kind of the ins and outs of what the software is. But then secondly, we've created a Beer 30 sandbox environment that every single person can then go into, a brewery owner can go into, and just like you would go through the muscle memory of actually brewing, for example, in this case, you would actively use the sandbox to add in your own data into it or test out fake data without it having an impact on your real information. And then the third aspect of the toolkit is the Beer 30 Legends Facebook group. And the cool thing about that is that these are for all of our customers or people that are just really interested in the software demos that we give, and allows them to have a community. It's a private group that allows them to have a community where they can ask questions about the Beer 30 platform, how they're actively using it, getting tips from other people. And we realize that it creates this whole element of helping one another out, of just understanding what the best tips are associated with it. And then from there, I think the fourth aspect that we have is having a WhatsApp chat group with each of our customers directly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we have hundreds of chat messages, chat groups that are there. And it becomes our aspect of using that with a ticketing system of sorts. So that way we can really understand what's happening directly and communicating directly with the customer, right? Because we all know, like, one of the biggest aspects in this industry is that it's a small enough industry that customer service as a whole is very huge. And you want to leave that positive taste in people's mouth where people know exactly what you're about, what your product is about. And as a part of that with technology, we decided, well, instead of, as we started getting into international clients and we started getting into Australia, this is years ago, we realized, well, trying to communicate via email was just getting very tedious. And so WhatsApp is an international platform that's free. And so it becomes a very good way for us to use that to help grow our business. And so instead of trying to use Slack or something else, we actually transitioned all of our operations into WhatsApp, just based off of the idea that we can communicate internationally and get feedback directly from our clients or even answer questions, as opposed to having long threaded support tickets or emails that happen. And the cool thing about that from a knowledge perspective is that all the brewery owners, managers, et cetera, are all part of the same group. So if I'm answering a question for Dan, and let's say all 6 of us are on it, all 6 of us are gaining from that new knowledge that Dan just asked a question about. And so it becomes a great way to start teaching more people at once rather than having a bunch of emails that are going back and forth.
Who would have thought a tech company uses tech to make the lives of other people themselves easier?
So weird, so crazy.
Kudos to that. I think that's amazing. I think the community at CBP is special, and I think you're just taking a little feather from that cap. But creating a community there is a great idea. So kudos to you just for that, PK.
Yeah, PK, how do you manage that? Just do you have somebody that's job is to watch the tech streams coming in?
So actually, I mean, yeah, so we have our customer success team, customer experience team. And so they're the primary point of contacts that are responding to each of the WhatsApp threads. And then we use a platform called monday.com. Highly recommended if you're all looking for some sort of platform. And we use HubSpot for our CRM. So effectively, as messages come in, the customer experience team is the one that's responding to those WhatsApp messages. And then depending on if it needs escalation over to the engineering team or product team, they're then logging that into monday.com. And then as issues get resolved, Monday gets flagged as resolved, and then it notifies the customer experience team to then notify and reach out to the customer. So there is a little bit of a manual process still between those 2 platforms. And I mean, there may be future API integrations that WhatsApp has, but we try to go down that road. But We've also looked at Zendesk, looked at a couple other platforms, but for right now, going the route of WhatsApp and Monday, even if it is a bit manual, it leads to a much better customer experience. And I think that it's really outweighing the process of, is it better to hire another customer experience individual that is going to help make the life better for the customer? Or do we try and scale that back and go to an automated ticketing system that, frankly, we all know the experience of reaching out to like a support at email and then waiting hours, days for responses and not having the same person every single time just gets very tedious because then you're explaining over and over again. So yeah, Ian, it's a bit manual, but I think having those SOPs in places are super critical for that.
Even in tech conversations, we're talking about the importance of experience. I love it. Now,
Yeah,
Ian, with BarTrack,
second that just on PK, I mean, the relationship side when you're dealing with the brewery world or restaurant world or anything is huge. I think it's more huge in those industries than anywhere else before. We know who we get our linens from. We know where you get our chicken from. We know where you get our grain from, so on and so forth. And we found the same things. We live by Monday. We live by HubSpot, just like PK does. But we also found that we're providing our customers a metric ton of data. And so the customer success side is a consulting division that we sit down and go over that data, but it's also gathering their feedback, their insights. And I always tell our clients, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Tell me the things that you hate the most about what we're doing, because if you hate it, there's probably several other breweries out there that hate it too. And that feedback is actually gold to us because it allows us to grow as a company and identify where we can improve ourselves. And the scalability side is a little bit hard, but to PK's point, I think this is something where you need to invest your time and your money, because the relationship and understanding your customer, especially when you are a recurring revenue platform as a business, you don't want that churn. You want to build relationships. You want to keep those customers happy, and having those touch points is imperative.
Agreed. Now, Ian, with Country Malt Group, you mentioned a little while ago that you did launch your web store a few years ago, but it wasn't quite at the level you wanted it to be. Talk to me a little bit about the feedback you received and what brewery partners can expect for your upcoming relaunch.
Yeah, appreciate that. So we originally launched on a platform that was independent of our own backend or our own ERP system. So through custom development, we were able to enable quite a bit of the features that we wanted, but the logjam of additional features was about 3 or 4 pages long. And we just found that it became increasingly more and more time consuming as well as expensive to enable each of those features. At the same time, our overall ERP was starting to age out a bit and show its bones. So as a business, we decided that we're going to modernize our overall backend systems. We're going with a new technology it's all cloud-based. It's allowing us to be able to operate all of our various businesses around the world, from our grain processing plants to our country malt warehouse that's in a city near you, all in the same system, sharing that same information across. And then we could take those same processes and put them onto the new web store. So the web store is part of that. It's bleeding edge Microsoft technology at this point, which I will say can be a little bit bloody for everybody involved, but it also means that there's a whole lot of opportunities for any sort of feature implementations that we want. So we are doing our cutover this Friday. And what that means, all of our customers have been getting hopefully ad nauseum communications about, but we're going to be shutting down our warehouses and fulfillment centers for about 5 or 6 days. And during that, we're transitioning all of our information, all of our data from the old system to the new one. And then on September 6th, we are going live with the brand new world. At that point, we will launch what I'm calling Web Store 2.0. From there, we are going to be able to implement a whole bunch of cool, exciting new technologies. So we're talking about that feedback channel that PK's mastered here. And I was just taking notes and stealing all sorts of ideas. I mean, I was thinking about just doing a chat functionality with our CSRs or customer service team, but what if we're allowing people to do that independent of being on the website? So it just goes to a dedicated support team that way. I love that idea. Letting people save their various recipes and naming them, so that instead of having to pick all of the various malts and all of the various hops, they can just say, I want 2 of my flagship IPA, and it'll automatically fulfill that cart. One of the features that's been a giant pain in the butt, and I'm excited to go live with next week, week after next is the ability to, if an item is out of stock, it'll actually recommend the 4 or 5 other malt subs that are in fact in stock. So there's no waiting, there's no back and forth with your customer service rep trying to figure out what the heck you can order instead. So the intention is to take a process that could be 30 or 40 emails back and forth and turn it into a quick 20-second, 1 minute long transaction and leave people happy.
We don't love tons of emails, but that sounds very valuable.
Exactly.
Now, Justin, over at kickfin, talk us a little bit about how kickfin works. I know it's obviously you're getting rid of the cash payouts and you're digitizing these, but tell me about the process. Like if I owned a brewery, I want to engage with kickfin. What does that look like?
Yeah, I'll give the explanation is literally as simple as it is to deploy, because if we can't be easier than cash, I think we shouldn't be in business. But, quite simply put, merchant would literally just give us a call and say, listen, I want to get rid of the bank teller work. I want to sign up with kickfin. We submit the application, and within the same day, the software is live. So it allows the employer to log in, set up employees. Employees roll via text or email. It takes about 45 seconds for them to log in, set up an account, and then tokenize their card on file. From there, there's really 2 simple ways to work with us. Some people literally drag and drop their Excel spreadsheet directly into the app, and we process those tips instantly to the employee's bank of choice. And some that want maybe a more sophisticated connection will link in via our API. But both can be set up within 72 hours. It's really easy to deploy. All the accounting and software takes full accountability into every tip that's been paid out. What I would say really quickly, because this space more than anything is of service, right? When you walk into these breweries, it's all about experience. And what is lost with paying cash tips is really like it's 60% of the employee's wages. So when you pay it in cash, you just don't know. There's no visibility into that from an employee's perspective. And what our operations team does a really good job at is how do we take the data of the tip payments, kind of metabolize that and put it in a way for that manager to say, hey, we're seeing that Dan or John has the ability of on average earning 30% more via tips. Let's understand his work process. Is he upselling more than the next? Is he more personable? So I think the unique evolution that we've seen around digital tipping, it's finally putting the data in the hands of the operator to really then empower staff. They're all there to work and make money and have fun, but why not put it in the handset of the operator to really show those employees of the true reward of giving great service? And so that's been kind of the fun evolution of easy deploy, easy to set up, all visual transparency into the software, but most importantly, there's that employee element that we really love.
Justin, I think you and I are kindred spirits because you just touched on something I absolutely love. Where in my other hat, I run a company called Secret Hopper. It's a mystery shopping company for breweries, and our focus is on that customer experience. And one of my favorite metrics is tip percentage because, if Dan, I'm going to pick on you for a second because we're friends. If, Dan's behind the bar and he's consistently getting tipped 16%, but Justin's getting 26%, Justin's obviously engaging at a higher level. And I love looking at metrics like tip percentage, and I love what you all are doing at kickfin. Very, very neat stuff there. This really talks to the importance of experience.
Well, one thing I want to touch on with what Justin said too is, the feature I was talking about that was pretty impressive to one of our customers was brew knowledge, and how they were going to leverage that with their staff is to educate them on the product so they can talk more efficiently and effectively to their customer about it. So then, hopefully in the end, right, they're getting more tips, they're ringing more beers, things like that. So I think, technology coming into a facet of like, give your staff a couple more bullet points, in their arsenal that they can go, you get more tips. And when you go to a brewery, you're expecting a higher pace of knowledge than when you go to a craft beer bar, things like that. So adding a little technology aspect to that hopefully is putting more money in some pockets of these wait staff members.
Yeah, I'd love to chime in on that too. I mean, we started this company as an ability to identify foaming issues, to identify where you're having issues on the lines. And what we've actually found through the process of, we provided reports that break your pours and your sales down by the hour. And what we found in that process is when managers or operators sit down with their staff and actually show them where they're seeing issues, staff sees that data. They see that the operator can now see exactly what's taking place. and they change their behavior. And in that behavior change, they start to step their game up a little bit. They don't want to be on a report where things aren't getting rung up or this. They start paying attention to what they're doing. They start communicating their issues with foaming lines and so on and so forth. And in that, we also see an increase in sales, and that increase in sales translates to additional tips for the staff as well.
That's fantastic.
No, I love everything we're diving into right now. One thing I do want to dive deeper into is, how you're judging success for your brewery partners. And all of you have touched on it a little bit, but that data you're looking at, what are some of, let's say, top 3 data points you as a company like to look at? You don't need to do a full 3, but, what are you most proud of when you look at your relationship with a brewery? You can look at X, Y, Z and say, this is a success. What are those metrics for you all? I'm not going to call on someone. Oh, there we go. Everybody unmuting all at once. That was like rapid fire for everyone, listening.
I'll jump into this. I think for us, it's visibility, right? What's been important for us on the brewery side is to be able to pour the beer the way the brewer intended. That's important, right? And it's even more so important. Yeah, when it goes to the restaurant, you might lose some control there. But on the brewery side, you're the brewery. Your margins are not going to be any better than they are on those tap handles. And making sure that beer tastes the way you want it to is pivotal for us. And BarTrack specializes in that by able to, we identify high and low pressures. We identify temperatures of your lines and of the beer itself. We can pinpoint where those issues are taking place so you can immediately make adjustments. I think in addition to that is the ability to identify where your loss is, right? When you can identify where your loss is actually taking place in traditional inventories, it's all getting lumped into one lump sum. When I can sit here and say, you didn't have 7 beers rung up at this time and 4 of them were due to the fact that your lines were foaming due to high pressure, you can go in and tweak that, or we're identifying glycol issues, things of that nature. It's that visibility into their business so that they can start to make changes quickly as opposed to waiting a week or so, really diving in. And then the automation and streamlining. You walk into your brewery and you're putting out fires left and right. If we can automate that inventory process, if we can provide a consultative approach where we work with your staff to get them operating properly, you're going to see increased efficiency. And the last thing I'll add to that is consistency. Success is bred through consistently doing the same thing every single time, right? And when you can provide data that allows your staff to look at that, create best practices, implement them, and then standardize your operating procedures on the ones that stick to the wall and create efficiency. And then this is how we operate going forward. And that's really what we specialize in. Yeah, it's great to see real-time keg levels and have this and have that. But at the end of the day with BarTrack, our focus is to get you operating consistently the same way every single time so that you are efficient across the board.
One thing I really like about what you said, Ian, is, you focused a lot on what BarTrack was, but you also focused a lot on the knowledge that you provide and that you're there to be an engaged partner. You're not just saying, hey, here's the data, use it as you wish. You want to hold their hand and you're in this together.
We spend up to 3 months with each customer, meeting with them almost weekly on some cases. Because again, to PK's point, it's the relationship that's important. I don't want to just dump a bunch of data on you. I want to show you how to use that data. I want to show you the success of our other brewery partners and really help implement that into your day-to-day.
Who's your favorite customer? I'm just kidding. You don't have to. Just kidding.
Don't put me there.
I can go next on that. Not the favorite customer part, because there's a lot of them, but we talk a lot about the data side, and the phrase I like to use is data-informed decision-making. And as we've talked about with technology, there's more data than ever before. But Ian from BarTrack, what you're talking about there is being able to actually help customers parse through that massive amount of data, and that's a beautiful thing. As far as where I would find our success metrics narrowed down to just 3 is really the share of revenue. We are a supplier, so customers are ordering their ingredients from us on a regular basis. And right now, the vast majority of them are doing it through email or through calling up our call center and our customer service reps. The more of those transactions that I see move to the virtual platform, to the web store, that's really my number one metric overall. My job, or my hope, is that within 5 to 7 years, we're going to have 70 to 80% of our transactions going through the web store. And to do that, we need to make sure it's as appealing of an experience as possible. Likewise is order accuracy. Right now, if a customer is emailing in an order or calling in an order, there may be opportunities where that particular malt gets transcribed incorrectly, or there's a misunderstanding and the wrong quantities put in there. So when a customer is actually able to go in and select the right product themselves and the right quantity themselves, that completely mitigates that. And so I'm going to say order accuracy reductions would be another metric that's a big one for me. And then the last one is customer satisfaction. Right now, if I can go into a friend's brewery and not get kicked in the shin because they're happy as can be about the experience, I'm going to count that as a win. So those are my goalposts or my KPIs.
Less bruises on your shins. I like it.
Nice. I can go next. I think Ian, you had mentioned, so coming back to like metrics, both internal and external, I think Ian, you had mentioned one of them, which was as a SaaS company, really the focus is on renewal, right? And customer renewal. So looking at renewal rates month to month, right? And understanding just how people are happy when it comes to re-signing up for the service next month, right? One of the cool things that we do is we actually allow customers to go month to month with a prorated 30-day notice. So they don't have to be locked into 1, 2, 3 year long contracts, because this is an industry where if you don't like the service, I'd rather end on a positive note and just be like, cool, wasn't the right fit, let's move on, as opposed to somebody then saying, well, not only did I not like the platform, I also had to pay a termination fee for the next 2 years or something, right? So with that in mind, renewal rate is a huge metric that we have for success. The other one that we have internally for success is really understanding what response times look like, right? And really understanding what's the resolution time from when the first message comes through to understanding when we give them their first response to when we get the actual resolution and notify them that this is resolved, right? And that's an internal metric that we use from a KPI perspective to make sure that things are working well for the entire business and for our customers. And then the third metric, I think, is more qualitative than quantitative, but it's kind of tying into what Ian said, which is Ian from CMG said, which is really the customer happiness, right? Looking at forums, looking at meeting people meeting customers in person. Like I personally, at this point, when I go to conferences and trade shows, I'm more excited to meet our current customers and talk to them about what they love about the product or what improvements they have than necessarily trying to do more sales pitches about it, just because the customers, you start building that rapport with them, and it's great to see them at like CBC, then see them again at MBAA, see them at CBP, and it's just like a fun network of friends that you're building out. And so having them and talking to them about, hey, like I can now use the software to get my cost of goods within 1 click, right? This is something that used to take them hours before. Running a TTB information is a 2-click report that before it took them hours every month. Like those are all ways of having positive anecdotal feedback that ties in with we're headed in the right direction. And that's kind of another metric of success that we would use to show that our technology is making a difference.
Awesome. Thank you. Justin, how about you? How does kickfin measure success?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because when you're on your website and you see all these amazing brands that we all support, like there's nothing sexier than owning an awesome microbrew. But a brewery. But when you look at like what these vendors have to go, or these operators have to go through, like they have a massive tech stack in their own right. And within every one of those, there's probably 3 people that are calling on them. So there's so much that's going on. But when we look more specifically, we are always focused on a 24-hour ROI. Like if we can't, show that by digitizing the cash tip out process is going to save you time, money, and a whole bunch of accounting nightmares within 24 hours, then I think we've lost our seat at the table. So we just do everything in our power to flip the software on as quickly as possible, get it in the hands of the operator. So whether they think it's a hard dollar cost savings or a soft dollar cost savings, at least they can sit there and say, Joe's not sitting on the clock waiting for his cash tips. And I would say like the final piece of that, and maybe point to an exciting success story we had with North High Brewing. They are in kind of a scale mode where they're adding numerous locations, and to kind of have wash, rinse, repeat behavior for their store rollouts to, digitize, a piece of their business, which is very analog. But one big section that they put in the case study was their ability to recruit, right? It was giving employees a modern way to receive their tips. maybe it's not their only job. Maybe they're bouncing around between various bars and restaurants. And so, when we look at the time savings, 5 hours a day, $1,000 a month on average is what we're saving people. But again, what's our North Star is just the ability of having employees live more gainfully, financially sound lives by having kind of that digital money in their bank of choice the second their shift's done. But then KP mentioned a whole bunch of KPIs on service and WhatsApp app, which that's a topic for another conversation that we'd have to get into. But the ops piece is obviously really key because it's the supporting heartbeat of our business.
Justin, you accidentally called him KP, but I actually think that makes sense because he always is talking about KPIs.
So, there we go.
I like it.
I may have coined a new nickname, PK.
I like it. Or maybe PKI. I don't know. Instead of that A, you got the end of it. Dan, how about you? How are you all? Because you have quite a few different parts to your ecosystem. How are you measuring success? And take it however you want.
Yeah, so we kind of have a saying that kind of, goes across all the platforms, and it's know more, do more, and grow more. And that's what we want to provide for any of our customers, that we have. And really it's, providing them data. You go to these trade shows now, and as technology and stuff is becoming more and more prevalent in the brewing industry, it's dated this, dated that, but it's also like you have business owners that don't really know what to do with some data. So how can we make it digestible for them to make accurate business decisions? And so that's our goal. Are we delivering data in a way that they can make a business decision that's going to help them grow? Are we delivering data that people are trusting? Are we delivering data that is going to help consumers find their next brewery experience? So it's that quality data, but also, to touch on Justin a little bit, are we helping, businesses prepare their staff? So with Brew Knowledge, like that's a tidbit that might be really powerful and might keep someone on staff longer, knowing that they have the tools and the resources to make a bigger tip or whatever it may be. But really, it's just empowering those independent businesses. We're an independent owned business, and we want to empower them to grow their business. So if we see our partners growing, then we're doing our job right, and we'll keep continuing that.
Awesome, thanks, Dan. And Justin, you touched on a great case study with North High Brewing. I'd love for everyone else to share, an example of a proud moment you had when you were helping a brewery. And if you want to name that brewery, great. If not, I would just love to hear an example of, that you're really proud of and where your company helped the brewery see greater success. This is a longer silence than I expected on this one, everybody.
I can go. It's technology related, but not my side of technology.
Okay.
We ship out thousands upon thousands of sacks of malt per day out of our distribution centers. They're all recyclable, but whether your local ordinance or local county will take that to recycle is a whole other animal. So we've been developing with a few key customers in the last couple of years, various recycling programs in different parts of the country. And out of Vancouver, Washington, we've recently partnered with Breakside over there and a few other breweries to get a recycling program going that has absolutely taken off. So customers can bring their bags to certain depots, they get bundled up, and then they are brought to a specific recycling center that is absolutely hungry for them and turns it into various other plastic particulates, as well as some precursors to glass. So technology is heavily involved in that. It's not necessarily technology via computers or anything that I'm going to be dealing with, but again, we found an issue and we were able to come up with a solution that works for us, works for our customers, and works for the environment at the same time. So I'll call that.
Thank you for hearing that. Ian, with BarTrack, I think you unmuted a minute ago, so I'll let you.
Yeah. There's a lot to choose from on this area. In the brewery world, I think one that was very interesting to us here at BarTrack, and obviously I'm not going to put any names out there, but we had a brewery partner bring us on. Once we got set up with them, we were able to identify in the first week that they were losing around $80,000 to $90,000 a month just in overpours and some unrung beverages. It was just poor technique. And so we met with their team, sat down, they went through a training on actual pour technique, and they were able to drop those overpours from $80,000 to one month with $83,000, another month with $92,000, We were able to get that down to about $1,200 in loss per month after that. And they were paying $400 a month for our service. So it was a great ROI right out the gate there. That was probably one of our best success stories.
That is a huge success story. They very much appreciate you.
Yeah. Oh, BK, you want to go?
Go for it, Dan.
Yeah. We had a brewery partner bring on our performance platform, and they have 2 locations, here in Indianapolis, and one of them is a production facility. The other one did receive kegs, and one thing that was very interesting to me is that the satellite facility would run out of kegs, and they just had their weekly order that would come through, and with our software, it's allowed them to understand their kick dates, knowing when these kegs are going to blow. And with that, this new manager that just went on there, who's come from outside of the brewing industry, is able to tell the production side, like, hey, here's when I'm losing this keg, or here's when it's going to run out. I need to have this, a backup keg by this point in time. It seems very simple, and just talking about this, but it's a struggle for people to communicate at times, or at least to get the awareness of knowing when they need to get kegs on deck and kegs planned up to when they so they don't run out of an empty tap, and have that bad customer experience of someone coming in and expecting something on tap, and then you just don't have it just because of errors. So solving that issue has been pretty cool for him, and empowering him too as a new manager for the brewery.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And PK?
Yeah, I think 2 different anecdotes come to mind. So one of them was one of our breweries, Exhibit A, Matthew Steinberg, out of the Massachusetts area. And what was really cool for me was meeting up with him for the Massachusetts Brewers Guild Conference. And he was actually, like, as we were sitting down, he was actually on his phone on Beer 30 looking at a purchase order. And that moment for me was like, this is so cool. Like, I have a customer sitting right next to me that's like on their phone actively using the platform. And so for me, that was just a really cool moment to be like, nice, this is like that, it's that integrated with their day-to-day that he's at a conference and he's checking it on his phone, which is pretty good. Pretty cool feeling. And then the other one is, I think, a brewery out of Oregon, Pelican Brewing, and they've actually utilized this platform to the Beer 30 Lab side of the platform to actively gain over $200,000 in savings across 5 months, kind of thing. And so really focused on using the data to help improve fermentation outputs and filtration yields, and understanding just what type of changes they could make, and properly being able to track it. Because a lot of times you'll make certain tweaks in the brewery or certain tweaks in your process, but if you're not properly documenting what tweak did what, it's just all experiments that aren't being validated. And so having something like Beer 30 tell them what's working well, what isn't, has been huge for them. So I think those are kind of like the personal success story of seeing somebody next to me using it, and then actually having like the brewery client ROI side of things that we've all been talking about from a technology standpoint.
It makes you smile, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Completely unrelated, but I'm always reading or taking in new content. And right now I'm listening to the book Hooked, and it's how to build habit-forming products. And it really speaks to what all of you are doing, creating something that people constantly want to and enjoy using. So yeah, I think it really represents you all doing a great job. And as we wind down, what I would love to do, I would love to simply hear what's next for you and your company. And, for anyone interested, how can they get a hold of you or learn more? And Justin, I'll throw it to you first.
Yeah. So the best way to get a hold of us is either justin@kickfin.com or our website. So we take inbound inquiries, questions. And we also like just to pick up the phone and just get to know people, right? So always happy to set up a time to chat. I would say what we're most excited about is, again, I kind of anchored into this stat at the beginning of the call, 90% of hospitality restaurant bars still tipping cash today. So we're not going to get really feature fancy. We literally believe at the core of our business, as it states today, there's something really empowering about ensuring that you're supporting an operator to digitize a piece of their business, which causes tremendous headaches every day. And on the flip side of that two-sided market is the employees, how to ensure that they receive the most modern way to receive their tips. So the product is very sophisticated, robust. It does a lot on the back end with moving money and processing reports, but it's designed to be ridiculously simple to set up, to just be embraced by both the operator and team. So we have lofty goals ahead of us. We just feel really lucky to connect with this group. You can tell with your social media groups and how people are really authentic and hold people accountable, and you don't see that everywhere. So I just feel lucky that we were able to be a part of this today. And gentlemen, it was a pleasure to meet all you guys.
And it's been a pleasure having you as well, Justin. Now, Dan, I'm going to throw it to you next because Justin mentioned sometimes picking up the phone, and you're one of those guys who will actually call me, and I barely ever speak on the phone with anyone. So I'd love to hear what's next for you.
Yeah, we're still, improving our products day to day, and sprint by sprint, as we call it over here. But we're just going to continue to get more accurate on our data, and more. We want people to trust who we are and the data that comes from us. So we'll continue to hone that in and bring out some features as they come along. But pick up a phone. It's. And my wife tells me I never like talking on the phone, but maybe it's just sometimes what she's telling me that I kind of maybe put my mind in other places while she's talking. But pick up the phone, call me. Or you can get on brewlogics.com, and you can reach out to us there, Dan .Hornbrook at brewlogics.com, and reach out. I'm always down for a fun conversation, even if it's just shooting the hay. And I'm glad you noticed that. I do feel like the phone call is a thing of the past. It's just, it simplifies that email or that question that just needs to be answered quickly. So,
well, honestly, I really don't like looking at your face sometimes. So it is kind of nice.
It's not the best looking.
Just kidding, Dan. Always great to see you. PK, let's go to you. What's next for you? If there's anything you'd like to share, or how can anyone get a hold of you and learn more about Beer 30?
Yeah, I think on our end, our product roadmap is really focused in on what do we do to keep improving the overall supply chain and warehouse tracking side. So over the next 2 months, we have some really cool accounting integration changes that are coming out, and more on the product roadmap that ties in with multiple warehouses and getting into the mindset of actually doing some partnerships with some other vendors to be able to have that data kind of streamlined and have that all tied in together, making it as a one-click solution where, hey, I end up having a material resource planning side in Beer 30 will let me feed that with VIP data, for example, and get the distribution data in, or work with other raw material providers, other keg suppliers, et cetera, to try and make Beer 30 that central brains of the operation that kind of ties in with potentially all the partners on this call to kind of then tie in with how can that data be streamlined across all parties. So that's what's really next on our end associated with it. And yeah, if anybody's interested, just feel free to email pk@thefifthingredient.com, THE5TH ingredient.com. Just search CBP as well for Beer 30, and you'll find links or things about it. And so feel free to DM me, shoot me a message, shoot me an email, or get a hold of Andrew, and we'll get in touch. Thank you.
And if he doesn't respond in about 5 minutes, shoot me a message so I can make sure he's all right.
There we go.
Yeah, this year has been a big year for BarTrack. Next year is even a bigger year. We are a younger company. We don't hide behind that by any means. We've grown very rapidly, and so what we were talking about earlier on in the conversation is just the feedback from our customers. So cans and bottles is a feature that we're going to be adding here shortly for inventory purposes. And another big one is really turning the product into a CRM for our customers. Being able to identify things such as, hey, you normally add your inventory in on a Tuesday. We see that didn't happen. Did you forget to do this? We saw a missed line cleaning on this day. It's gone past your date. Sending those notifications, and also giving them the ability to put in their own stuff. Hey, I need table 52 set up this way, or I need this done on this end, and they can have their staff go in, check off on the things that they needed to have done, and sign off on that so that there's accountability on that end. So we're really excited about that. And then to PK's point, a big thing for us is integration with our partners, right? BarTrack's flow data has less than 0.5% error in it, right? We're very accurate on the flow data, and so being able to plug that in with partners so that they can see that, for distribution companies so that they can actually see when kegs need to be ordered for restaurants, for the breweries to be able to see that flow data, what's moving on their lines, how quickly is it moving on those lines, and we're really excited. The integration side for us is going to be one of the biggest things for us next year, just working with our partners around us. So it's great to be on this call with these guys here, and I appreciate everybody's time.
And for everyone looking to learn more, where can they do so?
Ian at BarTrack.beer, not com, but BarTrack.beer. And then you can also just go to our website, which is BarTrack.beer, which has a ton of information. You can always reach out to us. And, we're never selling. This is PK brought this up, and something that I think is great is it's got to work for you. And so we just kind of put out what we do. And if it makes sense, it makes sense. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But we love to talk, and we're always here to answer any questions.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Ian. And Ian with Country Malt Group, last but not least.
Yeah, thank you. So I can be reached by phone call, text message, or smoke signal. Emails can go to last name, MCHARG @countrymalt.com. And what's coming up is really, I think I've talked about it a couple times, but September 6th, we're throwing the switch onto the new system and the new web store. So that's going to be the next 2 weeks, heads down focus. But I'm really excited for actually getting to finally unveil that. Once we go live, I'll then be able to roll up my sleeves and start implementing a lot of really neat features and functionality that I will happily talk about to anybody that will listen. And then thereafter, we're going to be focused on the partnership side of things as well. I'd love to work with PK and Beer 30 and brewery inventory ERPs to make sure that they have access to what's in that customer's local warehouse with us, so that they can see live inventory, pricing. They can place their order in PK's system, and it doesn't even need to come over to my web store. It will just automatically flow through, process everything, and then send our order confirmation over. So there's a lot of really neat ways to integrate that. And I'm looking forward to getting started on that side of things.
I always enjoy seeing where these conversations go. And it's beautiful that conversational technology talks so much about relationship building. So Dan, Justin, Ian, and PK or KP or whatever you are today, I appreciate all of you. See you soon. Thanks everybody for listening. Cheers.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Be well.